Day 6 of our visit to the Canary Islands was a day trip to Gomera. We set off by ferry from Tenerife and arrived in the port of San Sebastian, the island's capital. It's the second smallest of the main islands of the Canary Islands, with a population of around 22,000 people. The island itself was formed by volcanic eruptions around 9.4 million years ago. It has an area of about 378 kilometres squared. It is a mountainous island with steep slopes, round-shaped with a peak of about 1,478 metres. Crossing from the car park to the coffee shop, we encountered a few interesting plants, including the castor oil plant. The lower regions of the island are fairly arid, but as you go higher up, more and more vegetation starts to appear, and the very highest parts contain the laurel rainforests, with water provided by the clouds and the mist. In fact, it can reach up to 50 inches of water a year. Gomera has its own language, made up of whistles, which enable the inhabitants to communicate over large distances between the hillsides. It was at one point in danger of dying out, but now it is taught in the island's schools. The first stop on our way to the national park was Mirador del Rejo, a viewpoint where we encountered Aeonium canariense subspecies latifolium, many of which were starting to form inflorescences, and growing both in the open and covered spaces, often on vertical rock faces. We saw members of the nettle family and examples of wallflowers. Some of the best flowers on the Aeoniums were not very accessible for picture taking. We saw this purple flower of the milk thistle, and this pericalis would make an attractive garden plant. And there were lots of examples of heather, moss and ferns growing around in this damper area. Aeonium aureum covered many of the rock faces, with just a few of them starting to open their flowers. This is one of the many types of sow thistle that we encountered during our trip to the Canary Islands. One beautiful plant that's endemic to Gomera is Echium acanthocarpum, commonly called the Gomera viper's bugloss. We can see here how the cloud moves across the trees at the top of the island, depositing moisture as they move through them. Many species of plants were seen here, including Mananthes laxiflora, which we had seen previously elsewhere. Next, we were up into the laurel forests of the Garahonai National Park. At the start of the trail we were following, it was slightly more open, and there were a number of different plant species, including one aeonium which was in full flower. In the damper, more shaded parts, we found a Chryson laxum. There were various aeoniums in the more open areas, along with Kleinia nerifolia. Other plants that we encountered included the Gomera marguerite, sage, and the Canary Islands juniper. The Macronesian golden jasmine had beautiful yellow flowers. As the paths moved into the trees, there was an increase in the moss and lichens growing happily in the moist, warm conditions, often covering the tree branches and trunks. Another achrysum endemic to La Gomera seemed to be enjoying the damp conditions, and it was whilst photographing these that I had my first painful encounter with a nettle. In amongst the plants at the start of the trail, we saw the Canary Islands chaffinch. We also heard many other birds hidden in the mists. The last stop on the way back to San Sebastian was a lay-by near the old mountain road, which was the main route prior to the tunnel being built. Up the sides of the valley there were many opuntias, some agave americana, and along the bottom of the valley, Canary Island palms. The walls along the old road contained many interesting plant species, including various aeoniums, monanthes, lavender, Lamarck spurge, and so on. The common name for this plant was the Mexican devil or Crofton weed. Towering over us on the top of the cliffs, as well as hanging over them, was Euphorbia canariensis. These examples of Kleinia nerifolia were doing a similar thing. This subspecies of Aeonium lindleyi is another La Gomera endemic. It was thoroughly enjoying hanging off the cliff sides. As we had seen on the other islands, the opuntias were spreading everywhere, either by broken pad rerouting or plenty of fruit being produced as well. There were also plenty of examples of Agave americana, another naturalised species. To finish off, we have a few plants that we encountered planted out around San Sebastian, which included the kapok tree, a bottle brush, and date palms. Then, all too soon, it was time to get back aboard the ferry to return to Tenerife.